But first, may I ask you, how many petals falling? Don't you recognize me? I want to live in the capital of non-action, longing for the mountain, awakening.
This is B.
I first got the piece just by recording, so I can listen to it. It was hard to get the actual music. Very beautiful, very full of colors, very dense. The poem that goes with it is so interesting because it is a person waking up after being drunk in the springtime. So it kind of lends itself to that lazy, relaxed, beautiful opening and expanding, and it builds, and then the person comes to realizations, and then it kind of relaxes again. It's just really beautiful, such a beautiful piece, daunting. It's a Mandarin, so it has a lot of sounds that are foreign, that are not familiar, that we as singers learn, French, German, Italian, Spanish, and it's interesting that there are these other sounds that we just are not used to and that don't exist in our mouths and in our heads. So it's one thing to speak it and to hear it spoken, it's another thing to put it into music. Any new language that comes at you, scary at first, but then once you start getting the sounds in your ear and in your head, then you put it in your voice, then it starts making sense. And where it sits spoken and where it's sung are two different things as well. So it's been kind of fun. It's been interesting. A challenge, but fun nonetheless.
Omar, take one, Mark.
My name is Omar Najmi. I'm from Reading, Massachusetts, and I am a creator. I think by performing, so specifically performing, I'm going to look at this through the context of my work as a performer versus my work as a composer. It's been sort of a lifelong journey and struggle that I was a very, very shy person and very socially inward, and felt for a lot of my life like I was a observer to life rather than a participant in it. And so in some ways, performing was sort of an escape from that. It was something that gave me permission and, in fact, required me to be a direct participant in that kind of physical action, and also in, so the physical action of embodying this role on stage, but also to be putting myself out there in front of everyone's eyes as a performer. It has felt like a kind of important journey for me in order to conquer my own inherent introversion isn't the right word, but just, yeah, I guess shyness. So I think that's what I love the most, that it feels like here's a thing that anyone who knew me as a child would not have thought I would be able to do in the way that I am able to do it. So that always feels like every small victory I make, every new benchmark in my career, every new role I do, every time that like my face is on the poster being the leading role in some new opera, it feels like this victory against things that I struggled with about my own person. Identity is an interesting question because I feel like it is twofold. There is the identity that we personally identify with, and there's identity in the context of how others are viewing us and categorizing us. And that's been a journey for me as an artist to try to reconcile those two different things that aren't always on the same page. I grew up in an environment where I don't think I really used cultural identifiers. My father is, as I mentioned, is from Pakistan. My mother is white Irish American. And I always just thought of myself in terms of the specifics of who I individually am and kind of clung to that, very essentially American ideal of individualism. That has changed for me a little bit in the context of identity through the lens of how other people are viewing me, in some good ways and some bad. But on the good side, I feel like that has led to me in my work, particularly my work as a composer, to me reaching back and connecting to my South Asian heritage, particularly I'm writing an opera right now set during the partition of India, and that has been a really enriching journey for me personally, both in sort of exploring real life stories from my family that I never heard because I never asked, but also in exploring the incredibly deep tradition of Hindustani classical music, which is this like whole world that I had only scratched the surface of in terms of things that I had passively heard played in my household occasionally, but now like really diving into understanding the music theory aspects that underlie the things that are similar to Western music, the things that are totally different, the ways, there's a lot of microtonality, and the ways, if you look historically at how the British regime brought keyboard instruments, in particular the harmonium, to India, and then that sort of forces this microtonality into our 12-note system and kind of fundamentally changes what the music is. So that's definitely been some work of mine artistically that has been influenced by my identity, for sure. Piggybacking on what I previously mentioned about the fact that particularly in my youth, I did not necessarily ascribe specific identifiers to myself, but it was very clear to me, even back in high school when we were doing musicals and casting was happening, that for whatever reason, people responsible for casting me it was like I couldn't possibly be seen in a romantic role. And I couldn't really understand why. I was always tried to parse, what is it about me? Is it my ethnicity, which I didn't think was necessarily particularly visible in a specific way, but maybe it was, I don't know. Was it my build? That's something that's the biggest part that's kind of stuck with me a long time, that I feel like I'd get a lot of feedback on just being slight of frame, and one of the first comments I'll get from non-music people when they hear me sing is, wow, I didn't expect a sound like that to come from a person who looks like you. And it's always intended as like an innocuous compliment, and it always lands kind of weird. It's like, it's a unsolicited comment on your body, and they don't, I struggled with an eating disorder when I was in high school. So it's like people don't know what your history is when they say those things. But it's also interesting the ways that that actually does intersect with race and ethnicity. That I had this moment a few years ago when my cousin Faizan got married, and I went to his wedding in Texas, and it was almost all Pakistani Americans in attendance there. And that was one of the first times in my life when I felt like, oh, my build feels normal. I don't feel diminutive. I don't feel like the thinnest man in the room, or among, I mean, I'm 5'10", I'm not short, but like among opera people, I'm often also one of the shortest men in the cast. And that was one of the first times when I'm like, oh, I'm the tallest person in this room. And I feel like there's no reason in the context of this community that I wouldn't be seen as a leading man. And that's, so yeah, just the intersection between appearance, race, build, that has definitely been something that has followed me, particularly just in marketing myself in the opera industry as a lyric tenor, that for a long time there's a lot of pressure for me to put myself out there for character tenor roles, which never felt like it was right for my voice or right for my persona. I'm not really a campy person, and I always kind of struggled to reconcile that with who I am. This is Der Trunkene im Frühling from Das Lied von der Erde. It is a piece that I love and have really wanted to sing for a long time, so I was really thrilled that was a part of this program. When it was first, as we were sort of co-developing what the repertoire in this program was going to be, I was looking at that piece and I'm like, oh, I wonder what Mahler's doing on here. So I actually had no idea that the whole text for Das Lied von der Erde was based on this Chinese poetry. So one of the things that's really cool in this program is that we have this piece, and then we have a sort of parallel piece to it that's a setting of the original Chinese poetry, but the parallel text, if you will. So that's really neat.
So taumlich bist du meine Tür und Schlaf.
I love singing this piece. It's really like richly specific and complex music. Not complex on the level of the many contemporary pieces that we're doing on this program, but constantly shifting tonal center, which kind of gets at this feeling of drunkenness. It's a joy to sing. It feels very much like a showpiece, which not all the pieces that I'm doing on this program are. So it's fun to have one where I really get to sing.
Wenn nur ein Traum das Leben ist, warum denn Mühe und Glück? Ich trinke, bis ich nicht mehr kann, den ganzen Tag. Und wenn ich nicht mehr trinken kann, weil Kehl und viel Erfolg, so taumlich bist du meine Tür und schlafe wundervoll. Was hör ich beim Erwachen? Horch, ein Vogel singt im Baum. Ich frag ihn, ob schon Frühling sei. Mir ja. Der Lenz ist da, sei kommen über Nacht. Aus tiefstem Schauen lauscht ich auf. Der Vogel singt und lacht und lacht. Ich fühle mir den Becher neu und leer ihn bis zum Grund und singen ist der Mond erglänzt am schwarzen Firmament. Und wenn ich nicht mehr singen kann, und wenn ich nicht mehr singen kann, so schlaf ich wieder ein. Fass ich nicht denn der Frühling an, lasst mich betrunken sein.
Sayonara is a piece in Japanese, and I'm Japanese American. And most importantly, it's a piece of a beautiful goodbye. And getting to sing with two other magnificent singers is really special. And hearing the way all of our voices sound different, yet when we all come together, what type of beauty that creates, it's really a special piece.
Sayonara is first time I'm singing in Japanese, and beautiful music is such a different style. I first time experienced this Japanese style music, and it's beautiful. It's, talk about the goodbye. We are saying goodbye to each other, and everyone have they get to meet a new person, and but they have certain time they have to say goodbye to everybody. So the song is about goodbye for everything.
It really is, for lack of a better word, a very sensual piece of someone who is departing from this person that they've had a very intimate relationship with. And you can think of that as a love interest, but it can also be someone that could be your best friend as well. And whenever you part ways with someone, there's still a part of them that stays with you, either physically or memory-wise. And so thinking more philosophically, you can say that we're still in a way all connected, right? Despite not being physically there, sayonara, we're saying goodbye, but we're still connected. Whether we like it or not, we're still there. So I'm very happy to have done that with Naina and Yulon. I love that I can just share my soul. And I realize that I do that because even when I'm upset and I sing, I cry, which shows that I'm showing something of what I'm feeling. And that's a beautiful gift that I haven't been able to discover in any other kind of field, to be able to, I mean, yes, it's completely scary to be vulnerable, right? Who wants to be vulnerable? But I have grown to realize that in being open and so vulnerable, it's just, I receive something that's so fulfilling to my own soul at the same time that it's just indescribable. But I guess that's what makes it so special, the fact that I can just share who I am, share my soul.